What's up, guys? Last video that I posted was on the power of our words. I think it was entitled What You Say Comes to Life. And the reason that I even did a video on that in the first place is because just in my walk in life and in my journey, there have been a lot of different things that I've learned, just like the rest of us. And I'm trying to set the intention of sharing those lessons that it is that I'm learning, because they're really powerful. And that's something that I've always noticed is in conversation with people, how powerful our words are. And I see sometimes in real time growth and change that happens. And I'm learning that we're constantly changing, right? And it sounds like a cliche thing, but actually everything that we're doing all of the time is constantly changing us. And sometimes we're not aware of that. So I don't want to ramble on about that, but the reason I mentioned that in the first place is because I was praying about what I should talk about. Because if you give me a microphone and a camera, or just just an ear, I will talk it off. And I get really excited a lot of the time, especially when I'm around people. You can ask them. I get really passionate very quickly, and it's not a bad thing. But just like anything else, I would like to hone in a little bit. Sometimes less is more. So as much as I would like to paint the full picture of my perspective of reality at all times, sometimes focus is good on specific things. Sometimes. So that's why I'm here, as a little preface for what this video will be about, which is it all starts up here. It all starts in the mind as a thought. So this is kind of a precursor almost to the last thing that I was talking about, which there's power in our words, and what we say comes to life. And at some point, everything that we say starts off as a thought. So why is it important to be mindful? Why is it important to understand that everything that we do at one point started off as a thought? Every way that we think at one point started off as a thought. Started somewhere. Being mindful. Why is it important to be mindful of how we're thinking? Why is it important to be mindful just in general? And what does that mean, being mindful? A lot of the time, it seems to me, in my own experience, that I haven't been very mindful. And for me, that looks like just going about my day, doing a lot of things, saying a lot of things, and not being fully present with any of those things. And as time has gone on, And in my search for truth, in my search for God and growth, I've started to pick up on that more and more. The lack of presence that I have sometimes having conversations with people and not being mindful of where I actually am and who I'm actually with. And I think all of us are guilty of that, where our minds drift to anything else except for where we are in any moment. And where is our mind drifting to? It's good questions. I think a lot of the time, there's that saying that's like the first step to change is acknowledgement, acknowledging the thing. And I don't know if looking at that thing and calling it a problem is the exact way to go about it. I think that sometimes it can start off that way, as like, I need to address this problem that I have going on inside of me, or I need to address this problem, this thing that I see that is not cogent with the way that I want to be. But I think these things that we're given awareness of, that sometimes they don't feel good at first when you see I'm not necessarily the good guy in the story that I thought I was, because I'm not being mindful, or I'm actually reflecting the image that I don't want to be, or an image that at one point hurt me. And we're not aware of that a lot of the time, or we haven't been. But it's good to be aware of it, because then we have a choice to change it. You know the saying, ignorance is bliss. I actually wrote a song not too long ago. It was called Ignorance is Bliss. And it was more satire than anything. Because it sucks. Being ignorant sucks, but you don't know that when you're ignorant, right? So being aware of these ways that we're thinking. How are we thinking? How are we thinking? Let's make it very, very simple. Are we thinking positively? Are we thinking negatively? Are there some thoughts that we have that are positive and some that are negative? Probably a little bit of both, right? We live in this life of duality and this world of, chaos and order. We're bound to have thoughts that are reflective of that. And actually, you look at the world and perhaps it's a reflection of that same chaos and order that came from a thought at one point. And I think that it starts there. And we'll go deeper into that at some point, because thought is very important. And I think that there's an even deeper place than thought. But focus, right? We're on the mind. I mean, even right now in this moment, as I'm trying to convey this thing that I've been thinking about, I have to be mindful as well where I'm at. positive and negative thoughts. Because our thoughts enforce our actions. I think about writing something down in my journal. I think about writing something down in my journal. I pick up my pen. That started off as a thought first. And you would say, Cameron, that's a really, really simple thing. How can that translate into literally anything else that we do? That person hurt my feelings. That person said something to me that hurt my feelings. It starts off as a thought. And how does that enforce our resolve for that thing? That's why we have to be mindful. Because this person hurt me. If I'm not mindful, what am I going to do? I might hurt that person back. And then it's this snowball effect of things that are happening that you're not even fully aware of where it comes from or why you did that thing. Have you ever had a moment where, I had this recently actually, I've had it many times in my life, where I will do something out of impulsion because I wasn't mindful about that thing first. And then afterwards I was like, why did I do that? Like, why did I say that? Or if somebody and I are in a disagreement and we're not being mindful, and then it turns into an argument and then a fight, and then I might say something that I don't really mean, out of trying to get a word into this person or defend myself or attack. And then afterwards being like, dang, why did I say that? And then you have to go back and you have to backtrack and it's hard to sometimes make amends with your words, because if you say something, it's done what it will do. And that's why I made the last video of, and I was talking about the power of our words, because our words are very powerful. And they start as a thought as well. So that was one of the things that I had mentioned, what should we be saying? How should we be thinking? It's a good question. How do we want to think? It's like, is that Bob Ross movie? He says, think happy thoughts. A lot of the time we want to think happy thoughts, and anytime an unhappy thought comes up or whatever, a lot of the time what we want to do is get out of that. We don't want to look at that because it hurts and it's painful. And that might have come from an earlier time in our life or from some other instance where we got hurt. It's like, okay, I don't want to look at this unhappy thought because it's going to hurt again. So I'm going to go and distract myself. But we don't think that way. That's what happens when we're not mindful. I get antsy, and then I want to distract myself. I want to get out of that antsiness. So I go and I pick up guitar and I start playing for hours in a motel room, and at the end of it, I don't feel any peace at all. That actually happened to me yesterday. In the moment, I thought it was good. But because I wasn't being mindful, I didn't recognize this deeper thing that was going on within me. I wanted rest. I wanted peace. How should I be thinking? I wanted to have peace, to have peace of mind. I think a lot of us want peace of mind, but we don't necessarily know how to get there sometimes, especially in a world that's not focused around peace, or teaching these things. I know that growing up, a lot of people are fortunate to have, maybe not a lot of people, but there are people that are fortunate to have people around them or people that bring them up that are teaching these things. Mindfulness seems simple, but it's actually a thing this world lacks a lot of the time. And I believe that a lot of the problems that we see in the world comes from a lack of mindfulness and many other things as well. But what would happen if we were mindful? If we weren't just being driven by our impulsions? How would that affect the way that we treat one another, the way that we treat ourselves, what we do and what we do not do? So we distract ourselves from these thoughts, and then it's never dealt with. The things that are coming up. And that's not a way to live our lives either, because then you're always running. And I know so many of us can relate with that, to where we feel like we don't have peace and just feel like it's just this nonstop, it doesn't stop. There's so much mental illness nowadays where people are just they're so lost, they're so weighed down in their mind, and they have no idea how to escape it. And the only way that they have learned to cope with it is by looking around them and seeing what the world does. And it's getting, it's always been a problem. It seems like it's getting worse. And I don't speak that evil over this world, but you just look around and we got to be honest about where we're at as a people. And you see people that are doing drugs. That's a distraction from thought. You see people that are identifying with lies about themselves. You see people identifying with their jobs and thinking that this is who they are. You see people scrolling endlessly. You see people gambling. All of these different things that are an escape. And, I think we all want relief. We all want that relief. We want to be like, be able to sink back and be good. And we find these escapes, but they don't give that. You have to keep going back to it over and over and over and over and over again. And it's like a hamster wheel. And it drains you. And it really only empowers that cycle to keep moving, not just for yourself, but the people around you and the world around you. And I think that's what we see. No relief. No relief, because we keep running from the truth. What is the truth? God. God is the truth. Jesus is the truth. I kind of had reservations about speaking about my faith and what I believe in on here. Maybe out of fear or turning people off, but that's cowardice. That's shame up here. But what do I feel in here? That is the truth. And I've seen that. I've seen how my thoughts are changed. Actually, one of the first prayers, my first prayer that I ever prayed was, God, if you are real, then I need you to show me, because otherwise I don't want to do this anymore. I was all up in my head, like, oh my gosh, I was so that. I'll get into that whole time at another point. How I found God. My first, like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, it was like this interfacing with God that I had not experienced before. That was that first time. But before that, man, there was so much toil going on in my mind all the time, just about these different things that were going on in my life, where I thought I was going, which I didn't think I was going anywhere. And that's why I said, God, if you're real, like, I need you to show me. Otherwise, I don't want to do this anymore. And that was a thought, and it turned into something really beyond explanation. And anyways, I say all that because the second prayer that I ever prayed was God, change the way that I think. Because found God, I saw this really crazy thing, and I was still experiencing that heaviness in my mind, that craziness in my mind, where my mind was bouncing back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and I didn't know how to stop it. So I threw my hands up, and I was just like, all right, well, I've tried to stop this. I tried before that, I tried meditation, I tried drugs, I tried partying, I tried exercise, I tried, what else did I try? I did music. I was doing art at the time. I tried hanging out with people and getting out and socializing. And none of it worked until I found, it's funny, number 7, until I found God. None of those other things worked. It was that same thing. It's like, it seems like a good idea, right? And I'm not condemning any of those things and saying any of those things are bad, but I think that those things in themselves will not save you, because you see people there, like, for example, the exercise thing. There are people that are bodybuilders. Do you believe that there are bodybuilders that don't have peace in their soul, and that they're actually doing that thing to be on that hamster wheel, and they might not even be aware of it because they're not mindful? Once again, that's not a condemnation to any of those people, because it's, Jesus said on the cross, he said, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And a lot of the time we don't know what we're doing. That's why we're described as sheep in the Bible. And, some people might say, man, I'm not a sheep. I'm in control of my life. It's like, oh, okay. I gotta free up some storage on my phone. But what was I talking about? Yeah, some people are, they get mad when you think about some of those things, and that's an interesting thing. Why, if, let's say, that's fine, you don't believe in God, okay. If you're in the search of truth, then you'll be open to listening, right? And if, let's say, you hear about the truth, have you ever tried to speak or tell somebody the truth or be honest about something with somebody, and then they got bubbled up and they got angry. It's really interesting. Really, really interesting how that works. But truth, I don't want to go on a super long tangent any further than I maybe already have. But my intention with all of this is to learn and to verbalize what it is that I have been learning, and to share that. So what should we be thinking? How should we be thinking? And I think that that's a really good question. I think that's a good place to start off. And I'm kind of just learning, even as I'm sitting here going over all this stuff. I'm just like, why am I holding back from what God has to say about it? How does God think? It says that we're to have the mind of Christ. And really for anybody, I wouldn't go as far as to say like for just an unbeliever, but even people that are walking with God. There are people that are walking with God that are not mindful, walking with God. But we're called to be. We're called to be mindful. We're called to be intentional. We're called to be like Jesus. And Jesus was like, he's through the roof, man, with everything and in perfection. If you really look at the fruits of his life and what he did. And I think that's how we are designed to be. And how did he think? Well, it says in Scripture that we are to have the mind of Christ, and we are to keep. It says those who keep their. Forgive me, I'm not the best with reciting Scripture. I'm still learning. It says, he will be in perfect peace, those whose minds are stayed on him. Talking about God and Jesus. We keep our mind on God, right? The highest of the high. Then we will have peace. And then we will be thinking peaceful thoughts. And what happens when you have peace in your mind? What happens when you have the thoughts of God and are thinking like God? You see transformation. You see what happened when Jesus was here. You see healing. You see people. It's so trippy, man. You see people regain their sight. Ignorance is bliss. Once I was ignorant, now I can see. Once I was blind, and now I can see. That's what happens when we're thinking the way that we're supposed to think. We come out of confusion and out of darkness, and we come into the light. And these things that were once like hidden are now not hidden, and we can see them. So before it's like, I'm walking in selfishness, I'm walking in selfishness. Whoa, I can see this thing now. It doesn't feel good to see I've been selfish. It doesn't feel good, right, at first. But if we can look at that thing as, wow, I can look at that thing positively or negatively. I could say, that is ugly, and I'm not going to look at that anymore. Don't look at it. Let's see how much that's going to benefit you down the road, ignoring those things that come up. It's like a little kid, right? If a little kid comes to their parent, which I think sometimes this is where it may come from. A little kid comes to their parent with something that's on their heart. And if the parent's like, because I said so, shut down, angry, it just gets cast out to the side. And then you end up down the road, and it has affected everything else that you've done. Our thoughts affect everything that we do, the way that we think. How do I see the world? How am I thinking about this world that I live in? How am I thinking about myself? How am I thinking about the people around me? If I look at myself all the time, and a lot of people have this nowadays, and I used to not be able to understand it, but I do, because I do this as well sometimes. Okay. Second time it's done the thing. I don't even know what I was talking about anymore at this point. That's okay. Being mindful is important because it changes the way that we show up in this world, and it changes the way that we perceive things. And not too long ago, I was with my friend Lily, and we were outside on the back porch of our friend Fetty's house, and we were out there, and previously to this, like, I had been doing really well, felt a lot of peace, and then I found myself in my mind about a lot of things that were going on in my family, and just other things as well, and I started thinking and seeing those things and thinking negatively about them and worrying, and you know, Jesus said, don't worry about anything. And it's not just like, oh, don't worry about anything, you know, because that's I was just talking about it a minute ago. It's like, oh, don't worry about it. But actually not worrying about something, seeing this thing, but not letting it bring you to this low place of hopelessness, and doubt, you know, and we all get there, you know, a lot of the time we get hopeless and doubtful, and thank God he meets us there. You know, it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the brokenhearted, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So he meets us there, you know, and also is calling us to see these things as not a problem, but something from God. These thoughts, these things that are going on, because our thoughts are not just going on up here, but they go on out there too. And you see that more as you're mindful. Oh, I was just thinking about this thing, and then I saw it out in the world. What a coincidence. Coincidences don't exist. At least I don't believe so. Because I've seen too many times where there is these very deep things that I'm feeling and thinking about, and then I will see those things out in the real world. It's like an answer. There's prayer going on up here, and there's prayer going on in our spirit all the time, and we just maybe aren't mindful of it. We're not aware of it because we're not being mindful, but we can be if we choose to be. If we say, okay, I want to be in alignment with the mindfulness of God. I want to be in alignment with mindfulness, in alignment with truth. Once again, I'm speaking this because this is what I want to walk in, because I believe that this is how I was made to be, and this is how I want to be. I was on the back porch with Lily. I was kind of struggling with these things, and I noticed after a while that I had been staring at this one leaf on this tree for like 10-15 minutes, not thinking anything. And I snapped back, and I had just been sitting there looking at this leaf and just thinking about all of the different things that are going on in my life, and you know, like thinking about thoughts, like thinking about the way that I'm thinking and wanting it to change, but then being like, oh, but I don't know how to change it, and just on and on and on and on. Because I wasn't being mindful, I wasn't being a shepherd of my thoughts, I wasn't being a steward of my thoughts. Because this thing is actually a very beautiful blessing if we see it that way, and if we hold it that way. And that's how we would hold anything, right, that we care about, is with intention and with mindfulness. You hold your child for the first time, or you're going to be mindful, you're going to be attentive, you're going to be caring and loving and gentle with that child, with this beautiful thing, because it is beautiful and it's precious. This thing is precious too, our mind. And we're precious. We're precious in the eyes of God. In the mind of God, He sees us as precious. Truly. So I'm outside on the back porch. I know I'm bear with me. I'm trying to stay focused. This is all very new to me, even this. On the back porch, I notice I've been staring at this leaf for 10, 15 minutes. I noticed all the thoughts and everything. And I felt God say to me, and when I say I felt God say to me, this is something that, like, I used to, when I first started believing, I hear people say, like, I heard God speak to me, and God is speaking to me and talks to me about these things. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like an audible voice that you heard? And I'm like, what does that mean? And I think that it's like a really deep feeling, at least in the way that I've experienced. I'm not denying that you could hear an audible voice. I've actually heard people say that they've heard an audible voice before. But not to say that you have to hear God in this specific way that I did in this instant. Because what I used to believe, what I used to think in my mind was, because the way that I hear God, or the way that I do this thing, does not line up with this other person's experience, then my experience must be wrong. But that's just not true. But I felt God speak to me in this moment where it was like all of this stuff came at one point. It was like this thought or something. But it didn't just come from me. It wasn't just like, because before, right before this, I was just in a swirl. And then all in one moment, boom, all of it was brought straight where I could see. And it wasn't like, I figured this thing out, boom, pull this thread, and blah, 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 blah. And I figured out how to solve all these things. Like, I figured it out. It wasn't that. But it was something deeper. It wasn't, I need to fix all these things going on outside of me. It was addressing the way that I was even looking at these things in the first place, and the way that I was thinking about these things in the first place. And what I felt God say to me was, He showed me this picture, this image, this thought of how I saw, how I think. He showed me how I was thinking, where I was like this bowman shooting an arrow at this target and trying to hit the bullseye. And in that, what I was shown was that I was separating myself from life. So, how can I explain this? I was trying to hit this mark my whole life. I'm trying to hit this mark, and I'm not hitting it. Or maybe I do hit it, but I just go over and I grab the arrow out and I start shooting again. And it never ends. It's just this like constant thing of me trying to hit this mark and looking at life as like it's this target, this thing that I need to hit. And I was separating myself from it. So instead of being one with it, I was separating myself. And I saw that and I felt it. And I was like, I know that's true because I feel this way. And what I felt in that, though, wasn't like a condemnation thing, or it was like, this is how you've been living your life. And it was an invitation into something more. It was like, this is how you've been living your life, and this is how you've seen it. How else could you imagine your life? And immediately I thought of a river. Instead of looking at my life as this target and this thing separate, me looking at God as this target I'm having to hit and separate, looking at life as though I am in the river. God is the river, and I am in it, and I am flowing in it. God and I. And man, that changed. That's been changing the way that I think ever since. Have I had times where, that Bowman thing has been coming back up? Definitely. But now I can see, and it is a choice. In that river, I get pulled back into the river. It might seem like an abstract sort of thing, or like, man, how do you get to that? But I believe that if we are seeking, if there's a deep part of us that wants to change and wants to address those things that have not been addressed, then those sorts of things happen. And my mind is changing. The way that I think is changing. And I'm seeing my reality change. Right now, I've been traveling for, and I'm going to do another video on this, but I've been traveling for a little over a month now. I went from North Carolina to Oregon, and hit a bunch of national parks and stuff along the way with my buddy Matt, and we saw a lot of really beautiful things. And my car broke down. That's why I'm in a motel right now, because my car broke down. And I'm like all the way across on the other side of the country, and I have no money and all these things, and like all this worry and stuff came up and whatnot. But that picture of the river, it hasn't left me, even though I'm not thinking about that consciously all the time. When I do come back to it and when I need to, it completely, it settles me. Even right now, I just feel settled just thinking about it, in the midst of, like, thank God, like, I'm in this motel. I've had to change my thing, like, oh, my car is broke down and I have to get a motel. No, my car will be fine, and I'm blessed with this place to stay. And here I am making this video. And anyways, I say all that because that desire, that thought, the way that I used to believe that I couldn't do what it is that I'm doing now. I wanted to, but I had all these limiting thoughts that said, you're not going to be able to travel. How are you going to make money? That was always my first question with people that travel or that go out and do these things. How do you do that? How do you do that? Because I don't see how you do that. But I want to know. And I had all these limiting beliefs, and as time went on, all of those things were addressed. I met people that were walking in these ways that I wanted to be, and it was a reflection. It was like, oh, I was just thinking about that. Now I'm meeting a bunch of people that are traveling. Like, okay, yeah, coincidence? I don't think so. And it changed who I am, and now here I am. My way of thinking, it changed. I used to think I wasn't capable, and now I know I am. More than capable. And that's what God says. And that's what I want to be in agreement with. Agreements. We make agreements in our mind, either with lies or with truth. See how lies are scattered, and that's how they make you feel. They make you feel scattered. But truth is singular, and it is all-encompassing. There are many lies, but there is one truth. And that is God. That is Jesus. And what does that mean? If you ask that question, then you'll find the answer. And it will change the way that you think. It'll change your actions. It'll change the way that you're speaking about everything. It'll change the way that you breathe, the way that you show up for the people around you, for yourself. It'll literally change your reality completely. That's not a maybe, that it's true. If you are walking in that and that is your desire, it says in the Bible, Jesus said, like, if you ask, you shall receive. If you seek, you shall find. If you knock at the door, it'll be open to you. I believe that's true, because I've seen it. Agreements. We got to make agreements with truth, not with the lies. And when we start to make agreements with truth, then those lies are exposed even more. Or they are exposed. You know, we have to deal with that. And that's suffering, I believe. But suffering can be a blessing too if we're looking at it and thinking about it. The way that God thinks about it. The way that he sees it. There was, what was it? There was a psalm that I was reading earlier, and I sent it to my friend Kayla because she is all about this kind of stuff. It was really good. It says, if I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you. That was Psalm 139, 11 and 12. God sees it way differently than we do. He sees our trials, the things that we go through, much differently than we do. And I think when we're praying, it's like, God, I want to see, you fall on your face and like, I don't know what to do. God's like, I'll show you what to do. I don't know how to think about this situation. God, I don't know. Let me give you a thought. Here, listen to this real quick. I got a thought for you. That's how he speaks. And it's always good. It's always like, oh, whoa, and you light up. Yeah. There's a scripture, it says, be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't conform to the patterns of this world. Don't look at the world and all of these things and be reactive, because all of those things came from thoughts as well. Not all of them were bad. But you look at a lot of things going on, it's really easy to be reactive. And a lot of the time, the problems, I think every time actually, the problems of this world start with a thought that came from a lie. Let no weapon formed against me prosper in Jesus' name. Speaking out against these lies, man. It says, be not conformed to the patterns of those lies, because they're lies. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's powerful. It really is when you sit with it. Sometimes, it's like you repeat in our minds. Like a lot of the time what we're doing is we're repeating and we're rehearsing in our mind and all these things, and we're not even aware of it. So there's a repetition going on. And how powerful is it when we repeat? When we repeat in our minds, we're thinking the truth. We're thinking, be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And over again. What happens? Eventually, you won't be conforming to the patterns of this world. You're being brought out of that, and you're being transformed, and your mind is being changed. One of my first prayers was, God, change the way that I think. And the other day I was writing in my journal. This is the Built for the Wild notebook. Got that from my buddy Kyle and this group of guys that we went out. Even this little thing right here is proof that I had a thought at one point, I want to be around some good people. I want to be around people that are passionate about life, man, that are seeking. I got proof of it in my hands right here. And I didn't know these people a year and a half ago, maybe a little over a year and a half ago. I didn't know these people 2 years ago. And now they're some of my best friends. Proof right here. Built for the Wild. Love you, Kyle. I think this might be just a good place to close off, and I'll probably, as time goes on, we'll talk more about this as more is revealed to me. But I want to end with this. This is, I have daily devotionals that I do. This is Jesus Calling. I have my Bible here in front of me and my notebook. And, I'm constantly just trying to be mindful. I'm trying. Sometimes I put this stuff down and then I find myself like, oh man, why is my life going crazy? It's not because of these things specifically, but because I wasn't being mindful. And I wasn't taking the time to be intentional about how I'm treating my mind, how I'm treating myself, my body, and everything. But I'm going to end with this. This is the daily devotional. And today is May 31st, 2025. It says, "The peace that I give you transcends your intellect." When most of your mental energy goes into efforts to figure things out, you are unable to receive this glorious gift. I look into your mind and see thoughts spinning round and round, going nowhere, accomplishing nothing. All the while, my peace hovers over you, searching for a place to land. Be still in my presence, inviting me to control your thoughts. Let my light soak into your mind and heart until you are aglow with my very being. This is the most effective way to receive my peace. Be still before the Lord, all mankind, because he has roused himself from his holy dwelling. Submit to God and be at peace with him. In this way, prosperity will come to you. Now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. The Lord will be with all of you. There's that deeper thing, even past thought, that we can get access to. And I think a lot of the time what happens, maybe before we see those deeper things, I think those deeper things are revealed in the way that we used to think. We're brought out of the old and brought into the new. I used to have these old ways of thinking, and then I grew. When we were little kids, we had a way of thinking, and then our way of thinking changed. Unfortunately, but not the way that kids think all the time is maybe not super good. I want this right now. Maybe that part's not good, but the childlikeness is good. The innocence. So I just end off with that, and I just say, bless you, whoever it is that's watching this, if you watch the whole thing. And bless your thoughts, that God would come in and cleanse your thoughts, that He would give you peace, that He would give you rest in your mind, that you would have peace of mind. Your mind would be stayed on God. That your mind would be clear. That you would have clarity. That you would have healing. That limiting thoughts would be addressed. I thank God for that. That's what He does. Thank you, Abba. In Jesus' name, amen.